Hello guys and gals, and welcome. So today we got a news update from Blizzard on Diablo 4. This is the Diablo 4 quarterly update. And I would like to take some time to go over the Diablo 4 quarterly update, because I know that there are a lot of people who are Diablo 2 fans who are kind of excited about Diablo 4. Mostly that they are hoping that it's not going to be a repeat of Diablo 3, which I have to agree that I'm one of. It is important, though, I think, to state that Diablo 4 has been delayed with no real definite announcing of the actual date that it's going to be finished. We're probably looking at a lot further in the future than we originally had thought. Hello and welcome to the year-end Diablo 4 quarterly update. We hope you enjoyed October's deep dive into sound design, the atmospheric ambient tracks, and peeking behind the scenes of how game sounds are made. Since our last blog, we've been hard at work adding new content and systems to the game. We've made big strides with every build of the game containing a host of expanded content, new art, balance changes, and other iterations. In fact, the team is currently playtesting an internal release of the game that represents a significant milestone. We have much to share with you today as a result, so let's dive in. First, lead systems designer Joe Plora will discuss updates to key elements of itemization. These include the return of plus skill on items, a new way to interact with legendary powers, and some early work on targeted drops. After that, grab a warm beverage and a comfortable chair as he walks us through Diablo 4's completely new endgame character growth system, the Paragon board. That sounds a lot like Diablo 3. Next, lead visual effects artist Daniel Briggs will describe the philosophy that allows our talented VFX team to create huge explosions and eye-popping skill effects while keeping the game clear and readable, even when there are many players and monsters on the screen at the same time. He'll also go into detail on how Diablo 4's new game engine has allowed us to make frame-by-frame combat more precise and nuanced, while leveling up our effects to take advantage of the new lighting system. Finally, feast your eyes upon a plethora of skills across all 4 announced classes that show off our skill-driven death system. We hope you enjoy this update and look forward to your thoughts and reactions. We'll be back in the new year and are grateful to have you with us on this journey. Joe Shelley, Game Director, Diablo 4. Now, that position changed hands quite a few times recently. The itemization of Diablo 4. Greetings, heroes of Sanctuary. We are thrilled to once again dole out a whole heap of info on the state of systems and endgame in Diablo 4. I'm Joe Plora, the lead systems designer, and today I'm going to share some details on 2 major features of Diablo 4 itemization updates and our plans for Paragon. Plus skill rank affixes. In Diablo 4, the plus skill rank affix returns. As players invest points in skills, they grow in potency, and finding items with plus skill rank can speed that along. As a bonus, when a player equips an item with plus skill rank for a skill they haven't learned, they will have access to that new ability. It's a great way to try out new skills before you're able to invest in them. Getting lucky drop that nets you a skill you'd like to build for 10 levels before you'd otherwise have access to it is a huge boost. Sounds a lot like Diablo 2. So we have an item here, a magic item, slowing large axe flaying, which includes plus 4 ranks to the flay skill, which is of course very similar to, I found a scepter that had plus 3 zeal on it for a paladin. I'm a little bit worried about the plus 4, though. And Diablo 2 capped it off at plus 3. Legendary and unique items. As Joe Shelley discussed back in our December 2020 update, legendary unique items remain a core part of Diablo's item chase experience. We've made a foundational change to legendary items in Diablo 4 by allowing legendary powers to appear on multiple item slots. Now, if you're searching for a legendary power, like martial arts, which enhances the barbarian's kick ability, you may find it on rings, chest plates, or helmets. There's no need to hunt for a specific item type any longer. That doesn't sound as fun. Now the real question is, what happens when you find a power on an axe when you really wanted it on a ring, or found a great legendary amulet, but you can't use the power? Well, that is when we get to introduce our new friend, the Oculist. The Oculist can extract legendary power from a legendary item, crystallizing it into the essence while destroying the item in the process. That essence can then be implanted in another legendary item, overriding the power that was present in the item at that time. Essence material can also be stored and used at a later time. Unique items cannot be modified in this way, keeping their fantasies intact, and as their name implies, unique. Not really sure I rather like that. I always kind of liked the itemization of Diablo 2, where, you know, if you found a really great item like an amulet that gave you a specific effect, it was very rare for you to find that effect on anything else. And then you would have to decide whether you wanted to use it or not. And I don't know. I don't know if I like that. Hunting for items. Sanctuary is a vast world filled with the forlorn trails through werewolf-infested forests, withered heaths crawling with cannibals, and fog-choked graveyards crawling with the restless dead. There are plenty of enemies and monsters for the hero to encounter. Each of these monsters seems to enjoy collecting certain types of items and will be somewhat more likely to drop those items than others. While bandits are fond of maces, crossbows, and boots, if you're hunting for a new pair of pants, you do well to kill some of the drowned instead. In past discussions, we've received feedback that it seems deflating for so much of a character's power to be delivered through the gear that they have equipped. I would agree with that. Customizing and planning a character feels less rewarding if it doesn't play a big role in how the character performs at combat. We hear you loud and clear, and in Diablo 4 we have placed a stronger emphasis on character power that is earned by all the little decisions you make while leveling up and exploring the world of Sanctuary. While we aren't talking about everything we have planned for character power today, I'm happy to talk about one feature in particular, the Paragon board. Oh god, it looks like Path of Exile's board, which was ridiculously complicated for no reason. In Diablo 4, we have placed a heavy emphasis on build customization, ensuring that you can have plenty of control over how your hero grows. The Paragon board unlocks for each class at level 50 and is a distillation of this focus. So before I go any further, let me say that that's a good idea to have it unlock at level 50, because when I played Path of Exile and I was presented with something like this at level 1, and I've seen this and heard this from many players, that giant board was a daunting and ridiculous thing that made the game seem way more complicated than it needed to be. So doing it at level 50 as opposed to level 1 is a pretty nice thing to do, because in my opinion what that means is that you're giving the player a chance to get accustomed to the game first, to not have to worry about this giant board of things, you know, in the beginning. And then once they've gotten a grasp on the game, once they've gotten their character to level 50, then you present them with this giant monstrous thing, and it would be a lot easier to swallow at that point, because they have a better idea of what they would like to do with their character. Once your hero reaches a gate tile, you'll choose which new Paragon board you would like to attach to at that location. The desired... Did I skip something? Let me just go back and make sure. Your hero begins their journey through the Paragon system at the central starting tile of their class's intro board, and from there you make selections radiating outward. Once your hero reaches a gate tile, you'll choose which new Paragon board you would like to attach to at that location. The desired outcome is a personalized set of bonuses that will empower your hero and honor your dedication to their progression. That will remain fun to tweak and adjust over many playthroughs. There is a lot to take in with the image below, so I'll walk you through some of the aspects of what we're looking at here. It's just one of the things that I really didn't enjoy about Path of Exile, and I feel like this is going in the same direction, is that the over-customization of the characters made it feel like there was no real clear defined roles. And without those clear defined roles, it felt like every single character could do every single thing if they wanted to. And I didn't really like that. I like the clear defined roles of Diablo 2. I like that you have a sorceress, a druid, a barbarian, a necromancer, and each one of those characters has very clear and defined roles. And yes, you can build them in just about any way that you would like, but you're still building off a starting point, a catapult, as you will. You have this base set of skills, and these are the skills that you are working with no matter what, no matter how you would like to build your character. Even if you were building a melee necromancer, your necromancer would still be sort of identified by all those skills that the necromancer has. And just didn't really like the way Path of Exile went, because it felt like all the characters were essentially the same character. The Paragon board is comprised of many fixed tiles. As the Barbarian earns experience, they will earn Paragon points, which are used to unlock a connected tile. There are a few varieties of tiles that I want to walk through. Normal tiles. These tiles are straightforward, providing a small but meaningful stat boost. Normal tiles are connective tissues that can be found throughout the board and are quite common. Magic tiles. Magic tiles are found in clusters throughout the board and provide a potent, more diverse set of benefits, as you might expect. They are less common than normal tiles, but are still plentiful. Rare tiles offer a significant boost in power. Upon entering the Paragon board for the first time, these represent great goals for a player to chase. Particularly once you've narrowed builds down toward highly specific goals, rare tiles also have additional powers that unlock once the hero who raises an attribute to a sufficient level, requiring some choices to be made when plotting your path through the board. Legendary tile. After the first Paragon board, each new board has a single legendary tile that can be found at its center. Legendary tiles impart a new legendary power to the character that earns it. So here are an example of common tile is just like a bonus to stats. A magic tile is like a extra fire resistance. We've got a rare tile here which gains 10 fury per kill, requires 17 strength, 125 willpower, plus 8% increased maximum fury. And then we have a legendary tile here, which is while your fury is above 50%, you deal 30% more damage. Just looking at these right off the bat, you know what this reminds me of? Heavily an MMO. It reminds me of an MMO. That those types of abilities, these types of skills that they have on this list are very MMO-like. This game may be more like an MMO than any previous Diablo game. Glyphs and sockets. A socket is a special tile that can contain a glyph. Glyphs are items found throughout the sanctuary that, when embedded into a Paragon board, confer various benefits based upon the number of active tiles within their radius. Glyphs can also be leveled up by delving into some particularly dangerous dungeons. Leveling up a glyph extends the radius of their effect, allowing each one to draw power from or impart power to even more active tiles. We have some examples of glyphs here. So we've got Rare Conqueror Glyph. For every 10 willpower purchased within range, you deal 31.5% increased overpower damage, grants 4 strength for each willpower purchased within range. For every 10 dexterity purchased within range, 13.5% increased damage to vulnerable targets. Grants 40.5% bonus to all nodes within range. I mean, this again, very MMO-like in its in the way that they're explaining things. Gate tiles and board selection. A single gate tile lies at each edge of the Paragon board. As you progress through the Paragon board, you will eventually reach a gate tile, which upon unlocking will allow you to select a new Paragon board to attach your existing board. Each of these boards has unique tile layouts, new magic and rare tiles, and a new legendary tile at the center. The Paragon board is extended from these gate tiles upon selecting from the Paragon board list. You will be able to place the board down, connecting to a newly unlocked gate tile. You may also optionally rotate that newly placed board. We are hard at work on these and other features we will be able to share more about in future updates. Though for now, that's all from the systems team. Thanks for reading, and please share any feedback that you have on social media. Reddit, on our forums. We'll see you in hell. Visual effects in Diablo 4. Thanks for joining us. My name is Daniel Briggs, and I am the lead visual effects artist for Diablo 4. The VFX team gets to contribute to features across the entire game, but today we will focus on the work we do to support combat. VFX artists collaborate with designers and other art teams to create strong thematic identities for the hero classes and breathe life into monsters. In order to deliver the visceral, gruesome combat players have come to expect, VFX is an integral part of the combat experience for all Diablo games. With Diablo 4, we wanted to step up the fidelity of our effects using physically based rendering, PBR, as well as better support the core pillars of gameplay, deep hero customization, itemization, and combat readability. Visual effects. Philosophy. Every effect plays a role in the final composition of our game. It is important to understand the context of an effect and how it best serves your experience. One of our core values at Blizzard Entertainment is gameplay first, and this drives a lot of the artistic decisions we make while developing visual effects for the game. Moment-to-moment gameplay is the focal point within the composition of Diablo 4. It should draw your attention. To achieve this, we must consider things like player skills, monster telegraphs, traps, damage areas, and character states. The visual effects for each of these components must be readable in all areas and lighting conditions so you can quickly understand what is happening and use that information to make informed decisions. In the chaos of combat, you'll need to be smart. Seeing a legendary item drop is exciting, but picking it up is not as important as reacting to a monster's attack that can one-shot hardcore characters. Oh, that's never good. One-shots on hardcore characters is pretty bad. Our goal is to balance the primary, secondary, and tertiary reads to help you understand what is happening. To do this, we reserve visually loud FX for powerful skills like ultimate abilities, while weaker skills meld into the background. Each class has abilities that range from low to high in costs, cooldowns, and power. In tandem, classes have a range of visual intensity that increases with skill power. This is pretty common in games these days. Combat improvements. To enhance the feel of combat, we have made several improvements to the way damage is applied in our game. In previous iterations of Diablo, an area of effect or melee skill would be a single area of damage that is applied to in a single frame. Thanks to our gameplay engineers, we can now animate target areas, what we call payloads, over multiple frames, which allows us to line up the animated target areas while the animation VFX play out. For example, Whirlwind in Diablo 3 is a cylinder shape surrounding your barbarian, which applies damage every couple of frames at a rate based on your attack speed. In Diablo 4, Whirlwind is an animated pie shape that animates with your character. AoEs expand outward with time, and melee swings match the motion of your weapon. Animated target areas improve accuracy to the way we apply damage in Diablo 4. It makes combat feel more impactful and monster ragdolls more visceral. Animated payloads also add a subtle timing to the variety of skills. Additionally, we have revamped the way we apply hit effects to monsters so impacts flow with the direction of the spell or melee attack. We use data defined in the animation and animated target area to find the most accurate place to hit a monster, where to apply a directional physics force to the ragdoll. In so few words, if you hit a goatman in the knee, the blood spray would come from his knee. The physic force applied to the goatman's knee would send it flying as if you kicked the leg out from under him. So we have a video here. Let's take a look. Come on. It looks like a test client. Let me make sure this is in the highest fidelity that I can get it in. kind of see what's going on here. I mean, it makes sense. Basically, what they're saying in a nutshell is that when you make an attack, the attack is going to be more accurately represented to how it actually looks on the screen. So if you have a snake that's burning in a circle, the damage is going to be applied to where the snake is and not the center where the snake is not. And as the snake coils and makes himself smaller, so too will the damage area become smaller. And essentially what they're saying is that the damage abilities are just going to be more accurately represented in exactly how they actually look. So, and if you notice when he attacked with that one ability, which kind of went backward, kind of like in this effect, the damage area followed the effect, as opposed to just simply applying the effect linearly. And it may have some downsides, but I imagine it will have a lot of upsides as well, because it will, as the player looks at the character and how he's attacking, he'll be able to more genuinely understand, this is how my ability is applying its damage. Visual effects, casting and receiving light. In Diablo 4, we use a physically based rendering lighting model, which means our materials look and react to light in a realistic way. This approach brings huge rendering improvements, but this can be counterintuitive to what a player might expect for class and monster abilities. As an example, think about what a campfire looks like in full daylight. Pretty lackluster, right? Next, imagine what a dust cloud or smoke plume would look like in the dead of night. It'd be nearly impossible to see. To account for this, we've built an engine and shader library that lets us break PBR rule sets in artistic ways. This ensures important gameplay and moments shine through as clearly as possible, while keeping immersive elements full PBR so they can realistically react to lighting. Previous iterations of Diablo use primarily unlit particles, meaning they are not affected by the environment's lighting. These particles give you amazing control over what art will look like. What you paint is what you get. The downside to unlit particles is that the art may look too bright in a dark dungeon, or VFX color schemes may not feel cohesive with every environment. In Diablo 4, we use lit VFX that meld into the environment's lighting, creating a more immersive experience. Using Whirlwind as an example, seen in the video above, in bright daylight, the blade reflects light from the sun. In the dark dungeon, it will reflect more subtle light sources like torches. The dust kicked up by the skill is also lit by the environment, so it blends artfully into the world. If we rely solely on environment lighting and follow true PBR rules, then gameplay readability is muddied, particularly in dark environments where weapon swing would naturally be hard to see. To counteract this, many VFX have emissivity? What the hell is that word? Emissivity. To cast light onto the environment. Several ultimates in our game will even allow you to change the weather and lighting of the environment for a limited duration. We strive for a healthy balance of gameplay and clarity and thematic immersion. So let's take a look at this video. Looks like magic missiles. Those are hydras, I would assume. It's interesting. Kind of a darker take on the hydra. Less fire, more stone. I'm assuming that is a druid of some type, summoning massive tornadoes. It's interesting looking. I gotta say, I like the art style a lot better than I like the art style in Diablo 3. Diablo 3's art style is not as good. That's to say the least. Dynamic player skills. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what art looks like if the gameplay isn't fun. One of the goals for creating player skills is to ensure that the system design team has a variety of modifiers they can utilize to create meaningful skill trees, class mechanics, legendary items, and Paragon boards. Choices should affect more than your character's stats. Once we have a class skill we are happy with, the VFX team adds the ability for developers to dynamically change the size, intensity, and duration of a skill. The visual intensity of a skill will increase as you stack upgrades and items that increase the power of that ability. In addition to these skill modifiers, we create variants of abilities that completely change the functionality of a skill or damage type that it deals. These skill variants can be changed by the scale, intensity, and duration modifiers as well. This allows variants of skills to be affected by a wider range of legendary modifier groupings. Your skill tree / Paragon decisions, along with the items you have equipped, will make your character look and play differently from other characters of the same class. Each of these ranges is handcrafted by an artist to ensure the art holds up all supported sizes and intensities. We do not uniformly scale every piece of an effect when changing size and intensity. We modify things like spawn rate, velocity, emissivity, man, that word again, and color ranges to make certain the art still fits in the world of Diablo. You know, I read a lot. I've read a lot of books over my life, like more than probably most people have. Entire bookshelves, multiple, and I've never heard that word, emissivity, not even once. So basically, same skill, different flavors. So, should the skill be modified in some way, shape, or form, it will be a visual representation that the skill has changed. Block of diamond. Man, how many times is that thing gonna hit one little monster? Poor guy, I feel bad for him. Oh god, another Inferno skill. That looks really cool though. Kinda wish the Diablo 2 Inferno looked like that. Alright. Okay. We want your character to look incredible as well. Our items are built in a way that allows us to easily apply weapon buffs to any weapon in the game. Not only will your legendary items do awesome things, but they will make your character look amazing as well. Here is an example where we apply the same fire and poison buff to several weapons in our game. Okay, got like some fire and some seeping poison coming out of a weapon. I mean, it's kind of interesting. I was actually really kind of fond of the Diablo 2 method, which is when your weapon is fire, it turns red. When your weapon is poison, it turns green, you know, that sort of thing. But I can kind of see what they're going for. I actually kind of prefer my weapon to change colors. I think that's really cool. Like when you have a weapon that does cold damage, it's blue, or when you have a weapon that does fire, you know, fire damage, it's red, etc. But you know, I can see what they're going for. It wouldn't be my particular choice, but I can see what they're going for. Skill-driven deaths. Sanctuary is a dark, gothic world filled with horrific monsters that do horrendous things. To survive in this bleak landscape, you must be merciless towards your enemies. We are bringing back a popular feature from Diablo 3, skill-driven deaths. This system allows you to decapitate, bisect, freeze, shatter, eviscerate, and burn your enemies, to give a few examples. With our new PBR pipeline, we can make blood, viscera, and gore even more realistic by having it react properly to lighting of an environment. Every monster is built with a skeletal and muscular structure used for killing them in brutal ways. If your character is in the thick of combat, they will be covered in blood, spatter of nearby enemies. Over time, your character's armor will transition back to being spotless. Self-cleaning armor. Always the best. Who doesn't like self-cleaning armor? Death, Geo, and characters. He's pretty cool looking. Little goat man. Oh god, goat man skeletal structure. What's up, goat man? That could be a whole monster right there. Just put a goat man in, looks like that. And another goat man in that looks like that. Excellent. She's a little on the thick side, that one. Isn't she? Oh god, okay. Never mind. Turns into a werewolf just like that. And a bear. I kind of like the werewolf. I'm not really sure about the bear. He looks a little odd. Kind of reminds me of some sort of Teddy Rumpkin looking thing. I guess it's hard to make a bear that's not cutesy. The sorceress studies the art of elemental magic. They slow enemies with cold before freezing them solid and shattering them to pieces. They strike their enemies with stunning bursts of lightning, causing bodies to pop and sizzle. Enemies collapse to the floor and char to the bone as the sorceress engulfs foes in fire. Some examples of death types that the sorceress can trigger: freeze, shatter, breaking monsters into pieces, which has been in Diablo 2 for decades. Charring a monster, singe the corpse of a monster with lightning. Burning the monster, scorches the monster's flesh, leaving the remains of a charred skeleton. The barbarian takes pride in their physical capabilities. Their arsenal of weaponry makes them deadly in close combat. With the power of their ancient bloodline, barbarians crush foes into the piles of gore and send them flying across the battlefield. Their brute strength is equally matched by their speed and ferocity as they unleash fury on the battlefield, dismembering limbs from all that stand in their way. Some examples of death types that barbarians can trigger is crushing a monster, flattening him to the ground under the weight of a heavy object, decapitating him, removing the monster's head from its body, cutting him in half, and it just says sweet and has a smiley face. Break lower limbs, the monster's lower body is shattered, splitting several of their joints. The rogue is dexterous. Their attacks are methodical. Monsters are often oblivious to their presence until it's far too late. A precise stab from one of their daggers or well-placed arrow is enough to bring most monsters to the floor. The rogue finds most opportune time to take on a fight, and they imbue their weapons to gain an advantage. Shadow magic can make a superb distraction, but their shadow clones are as deadly as their blades. Some examples of death types that rogues can trigger is eviscerate, spill the insides of a monster. Shadow energy deteriorates the life from a monster's flesh. Freeze/shatter, break frozen monsters into pieces. Poison, the monster's skin melts off, leaving a heap of muscles and bone. Flaying the monster. Flay the skin from an enemy, leaving the muscle structure intact. Wow, just flay the skin right off the monster. Middle of combat, too, you know, no big deal. it's no big deal at all. The druid is one with nature magic. They conjure storms and call down lightning on their enemies. They control the battlefield with gusts of wind as their animal companions tear the flesh from monsters. Druids manipulate the earth with nature magic, molding it to their will and bludgeoning enemies from afar. As their enemies approach, they see the innate power of the druid, shape-shifting fluidly between an agile werewolf and a hulking werebear. Some examples of death types that druids can trigger. Number 1 is roadkill. The monster is crushed by a moving object, leaving a smear of blood on the ground. Devoured, the monster's flesh is eaten away by a swarm of ferocious bites. Lightning gib. Lightning causes the monster's body to pop, exploding into pieces. Maul. The monster's skin is completely mangled, covering them in blood. That is everything we have to share with you today. It has been a dream to work on this franchise, and I've really enjoyed the opportunity to share some of our development process with the community. Thank you for reading our last quarterly update blog for 2021. I hope you found it exciting and interesting. We are actively listening to your feedback, and we strive to make Diablo 4 the dark gothic game we all want to play. Please continue to share your thoughts and provide feedback on social media, Reddit, and our forums. So let's take a look at this last video, shall we? Maybe we'll see a monster like corn. Popping corn. There's some shattering. That was definitely some charring. I'll say the burning animation is certainly nice and satisfying. I wasn't too enthused with that ice animation. I feel like it could have been better. Although, you know, it's odd the way that the monsters just kind of ragdoll with the fire. Like, you would think that someone that's burning alive, a monster that's burning alive, whatever it may be, would probably have more of a reaction than just slumping over and just, like, ceasing to exist. Like, if you were burning alive, don't you think it would be kind of excruciating? Don't you think there would be some wiggling and some general, you know, sort of, you know, like agonizing moments before you slump over? Like, because I swear these monsters with the fire effects, they're like, oh, I'm dead, and they just like flop over like a fish. It's not very cool. I mean, I do kind of like the effect and the way that they just sort of like burn away into skeleton bone or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, they need to do something about that immediate ragdoll into death. Is a little silly. I'm kind of liking the barbarians effects here, like the big swathing sweeps, the like the smashes. These are kind of cool. Oh, here's the rogue. So the rogue is doing these like quick, deadly, you know, like targeting the vital organs kind of abilities. Stealth. Okay. And there's our druid buddy murdering things with the wind. Pretty sure there were ravens in there, like eating the flesh off their bones. He's alright. He's alright. He's alright. So let's talk real quick about this. I know it's already gone on for 40 minutes because this was a rather long thing with several videos in it. But very quickly, the plus skills coming back on the items is a good thing. The ability to take effects and put them on whatever item you want, not really. I don't really think that's really a good thing. I feel like that's very kind of not good. Over customization can be an issue just as much as under customization, and I feel like that definitely goes into the over customization category. Although they did talk about unique items being unique, so unique items cannot be modified in this way, keeping their fantasies intact, as their name implies. Unique. So at least they're not allowing you to customize the unique items. I'm not really sure what to make out of this hunting for items thing, how certain monsters are going to drop certain pieces of equipment, and then they talk about getting yourself a pair of pants from somebody who drowned. That's disgusting. But, I mean, I can kind of see what they're getting at here, is that obviously you wouldn't expect a rat to drop a broadsword, and neither would you maybe expect a beast to drop you some clothing, things like that. But, I mean, you could overdo this kind of thing. I hope they don't overdo it. Like to the point where literally if I want to find like one specific item, I've got to kill one specific monster over and over again. That's never very fun. The Paragon board. So let's talk about the Paragon board for a second, shall we? I don't want to go into too much detail about this, but let's start with Diablo 2, a game that I know a lot about. If you are familiar with my channel, I make tons of Diablo 2 videos, and one thing that I have always preached about is how Diablo 2 is mystifyingly complicated. It's deceptively complicated. In the beginning, when you originally start to play Diablo 2, what you will find is that Diablo 2 is an easy enough game to play and build a character in. And the further you go in, the more you realize that there is more to it than you had originally envisioned. And this deceptive complication in Diablo 2 makes for a very interesting game, because the further you delve into Diablo 2, the more you learn that you have not scratched the surface of what there is to learn. And as you progress, and you become more accustomed to the game, and more knowledge is forced into your skull, you become accustomed to all of these nuances that you never would have been accustomed to when you first started playing. And Path of Exile throws you into this world of this giant board, and it's so complicated at the very beginning from the word go that it puts off a lot of players because of it. And that is why I think Diablo 2 excels, because Diablo 2 doesn't put off players in the beginning. It doesn't seem complicated at first. And I believe that it is that sort of almost deceptiveness of starting out as a game that is very simple and then slowly developing into a game that is much more complicated as you learn more about the game that makes it so amazing, because it captivates people. It makes them want to learn. It makes them want to continue. However, when you take a game and you put one of these giant boards in it, you can put people off very quickly. And which is why, when they talked about the Paragon board unlocking at level 50, I was actually pretty excited, because it seems as though they understand that having this giant board at the beginning of the game is probably not a good idea for those people who are just starting out, who have absolutely no clue how to play these games, and who have absolutely no clue what they're doing. But let's talk for a second about these giant boards. So we have at least that this giant board is not going to be here when you start the game. But later on, as you level up your character, you will eventually get to this board. And one of the bad things about this type of technology in video games is that it is very punishing to newer players. Newer players who have absolutely no clue what they're doing on this board will make tons of mistakes, and they will screw up their character. Now, if the game offers the ability to reset this board at a moment's notice to these newer players so that they have the ability to experiment and test things out, then it's okay. But if it becomes progressively difficult to reset this board, you could run into a lot of issues where players are relatively unwilling to move forward because they don't want to make a mistake that they then therefore can't undo. And this is the kind of thing that they can really make or break a game. If they do this wrong, you could see a lot of players bow out. And if they do this correctly, you could see a lot of players have a lot of fun with this. But know that even if it's done correctly, it's still going to be something that players will look at and they will be daunted by it. It will be this thing that's like, what the hell am I supposed to do here? They might not even move forward from that point for fear that they will make a mistake. And this is the kind of thing that this kind of giant board represents. Moving on from the giant board, which honestly they took forever to explain, and even with all the explanation that they made, it honestly still leaves a lot to be understood what you're actually doing with the board. And I never really liked this whole like carrot switch thing. So you got these legendary skills, these are your carrots. So essentially to build down a specific tree, you have to build down this way to get to the carrot that you would want. And a lot of the times the carrot that you want is not in the direction that you would like to go. It's interesting. Moving on from this, we also have the visual effects. I feel like they're doing a lot of good work with the visual effects. The sound and the visual effects and the ambiance of the game, all this has a big effect on whether you're going to want to continue to play it. Diablo 3 is a clear example of this. A lot of people really did not like the art style of Diablo 3. It was too World of Warcrafty, and a lot of the audio and everything about it was too World of Warcrafty. And I'm glad that they're moving in a direction away from the World of Warcraft genre, because I really just didn't like those cartoony graphics. And I feel like there's a lot of people who were with me on that who didn't like them at all. And it wasn't necessarily that I feel like the World of Warcraft graphics are awful. Don't get me wrong. I just feel like they didn't belong in the Diablo 4 or the Diablo 2 or the Diablo 3 universe. They just did not belong there. And they were just kind of shoehorned in. And I think a lot of people were very turned off on the Diablo 3 graphic style. On top of this, they're also talking about the visual effects themselves, and I liked some of them. You heard my criticisms on some of them that I didn't like. The fire in particular looked a little silly. Also, the combat improvements that they talked about, very specifically, they were talking about the way that an attack applies. Many times in Diablo 2, for instance, you would look at the way an attack applies and you'd be like, okay, it attacks like this. But then you would have to realize that that's not the way that it attacked. It was very much a different way that it applied its ability, different than the way that it looked on the screen. And you would have to translate these two out and kind of figure it out in your mind. Well, basically what they're saying is that if it looks like the skill is doing the damage a specific way, then it is doing the damage a specific way. And I see nothing wrong with that, because it will be much easier for players to translate in their own minds how the ability is being, applying its damage, which is a good thing. We also have lighting effects here. And they talked about how the physical-based rendering engine has trouble with the sort of artsy-fartsy side of games, making fires look beautiful in the daylight and things like that. And it really seems like they're struggling between two facets. Number one is the reality of things, and number two is the fantasy side of things. And apparently the physical-based rendering engine is only really good with the reality side of things. And so they're trying to shoehorn in the fantasy elements into the physical based rendering engine, which which is interesting. Dynamic player skills. This is a function that essentially allows you to change one skill into something else, and that sounds very Diablo 3 like. I don't know if you guys were familiar with the system where Diablo 3 would have an ability, like for instance, summon skeleton warriors that you could then put a ring on and it would turn them into skeleton archers. Or if you had hammers, you could like put a little rune on or a piece of a shield and it would make your hammers bigger. Or you could make your hammers shoot lightning or all these other interesting things. And it doesn't really seem like they're going to the ridiculous extremes of Diablo 3 where you could literally turn one ability into something completely different. But it does seem like we have a stronger form of these abilities, larger AoE radiuses, various things which apparently will create a stronger version of these skills and then relay to you that the skill is then stronger, which makes sense. We have skill-driven deaths, and they talked a lot about skill-driven deaths, freezing, shattering, burning, cutting in half with smiley faces. I got some gruesome people up in here. Poisoning, monsters' skin melting off and flaying people alive, and they're spending a lot of time on the gruesome side of this, and although it is very gruesome, I'm going to say this is probably a good sign because, Diablo 2, Diablo 3, Diablo 4 always should have been gruesome-esque type games because that's the genre that they come from. Diablo 1 and 2 were very gruesome games, and Diablo 3, although it even had the sort of cartoony graphics, still kind of retained some of that gruesomeness. Where what was lost in Diablo 3, I feel like Diablo 4 is making up for it with extra slicing people in half and devouring them and mauling them to death and shattering their bodies and flaying them alive. It sounds nice. Do look forward to these updates with Diablo 4 as we go forward. It is a game that I will eventually be trying out. I never shy away from a game just simply because of past projects. Diablo 3 was not really my cup of tea, but I played Diablo 3 quite a lot. I have many Torment 15 characters that are capable of higher rifts, and Diablo 3 got very boring to me. That's really all there is to it. And this video is already 53 minutes long, so I am going to cut it short here. As always, thank you for watching, and keep watching.